I am a candidate for President of the United States of America. I'm running for president because it's time for new leadership, because it's time for new energy, and it's time for a new commitment to make sure that the opportunities that I've had are available to every American.
Former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under the Obama administration, Julian Castro has officially tossed his hat into the ring and announced he is running for president. Now, this announcement does not come as a shock because Julian Castro, just 1 month prior, formed a presidential exploratory committee and stated that on January 12th he would announce whether he would run for president. And as we saw recently, on January 12th, he did announce that he is going to be running for president. So let's analyze a potential Julian Castro candidacy and see if he is a strong candidate to defeat Donald Trump. 538 recently came out with this thing called the 5 corners of the 2020 Democratic primary, and it divided Democrats into 5 major groups: party loyalists, the left, millennials and friends, black voters, and Hispanic voters, sometimes in combination with Asian voters. And if we go down and look at this list, and if we single out Julian Castro, what we find is Julian Castro does particularly well among Hispanic and sometimes Asian voters. And among the list of potential 2020 Democratic candidates, one thing you will notice is Julian Castro was the only Hispanic candidate of that list. And so Castro has a unique opportunity to win the Hispanic vote in the Democratic primary. He also does a little bit better with party loyalists. Remember, he comes from the Obama administration and he was in a top cabinet position. And another group he does well with is millennials. And the reason why is because millennials really want younger politicians and younger blood. And someone like Julian Castro fits that category because he is only 44 years old. And if he were elected president, he would become the youngest elected president in American history. And so that's something that might be more appealing to some millennials. But we also need to look at some of the weaknesses of Julian Castro, as he is not a perfect candidate. And those weaknesses include that he has very little name recognition and support in the African American community, and African Americans are more inclined to support African American candidates or candidates like Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. And so Julian Castro has a lot of work to do because the Rust Belt doesn't have a lot of Hispanic voters. It has a lot of white and black voters. And Julian Castro needs to do well in the Iowa caucus, and he needs to do well in these more white states, more African American leaning states, because if he doesn't, then he doesn't have a chance of winning the nomination. And even if he did win the nomination, the easiest path for Democrats to the presidency is by winning the Rust Belt. And if you can't drive out African American turnout, then you're going to have a problem. But Julian Castro can get significant Hispanic turnout, so maybe he can flip the map around, and we'll look at that later in this video. Another problem he has is he doesn't have the support of the most left wing of the Democratic Party. Most people who fall into the category the left, they are supporting Bernie Sanders, and their second and third choices so far are Elizabeth Warren and Sherrod Brown. And so he's less likely to end up winning those categories. One thing to also mention is that Julian Castro is a self-described progressive, and he does support numerous progressive policies, so he is certainly of the more left wing compared to the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. Some other problems Julian Castro faces is if a person by the name of Beto or Rourke also enters the 2020 Democratic primary, then he's gonna have to fight really hard to win Texas. And another thing he's gonna have to fight really hard to do is he needs to get donor support. Beto O'Rourke established a very big donor network in his 2018 Senate race, and Beto O'Rourke has the money, he has the ability to contact people, but Julian Castro may not. And so this is something they're both going to have to fight over, because which Democratic politician in Texas is going to be able to win out? Is it Beto O'Rourke or Julian Castro? And that's something to very much keep in mind. So let's start by filling in the safe Democratic states for Julian Castro. So the West Coast and the East Coast are going to be particularly safe for Julian Castro here. So let's go ahead and fill that in. New York, Vermont, Illinois, and Hawaii. So these are all the safe Democratic states. Let's go ahead and fill in the safe Republican states. So the Midwest and the South are going to be particularly very strong for the Republicans. So let's go ahead and fill that in real quick. Indiana versus Virginia and South Carolina. And so here is our leftover map here. Let me also get Alaska here. And so this is our map. Go ahead and fill in the states that are going to be won by Julian Castro, likely because of strong Hispanic support. So Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. He'll likely also win Virginia. And so these 4 states are going to be very key in expanding Julian Castro's outreach. So what about Texas and Arizona? I'm going to actually give those to Donald Trump, and the reason why is because I think in a presidential election, Texas is still going to remain red. And in Arizona, even though they elected a Democratic senator, they elected a very moderate senator, and the progressive governor's candidate actually lost by 15 points in a Democratic wave here, despite the Republican incumbent being very weak. And so what this tells us is Arizona is warming up to the idea of a conservative and moderate Democrat, but it doesn't support a progressive like Julian Castro, even with the high Hispanic population in Arizona. Let's also go ahead and add North Carolina and Georgia to Donald Trump's column here, and Ohio, because his Trump-backed candidate did very well in 2018 in Ohio, and it does show that it is a lean Republican state. So how does Julian Castro do over here? Well, he faces one major problem. He doesn't have enough African American support, and that's likely going to hurt him significantly in the Rust Belt. I think he can hold on to Minnesota and Michigan, but Wisconsin, Pennsylvania are going to go to Donald Trump. And because of the tariffs and all of that stuff, I think maybe Iowa could go for Julian Castro, but let's just leave that in the Democratic column for now. We'll give New Hampshire to Julian Castro and Maine to Julian Castro, except for the 2nd Congressional District. And so as you guys can see, 254 to 255, this election will literally come down to Florida, similar to the 2000 election, but with a different map. As you guys can see, this is not anything like Bush's map. And so we're actually going to give Florida to Julian Castro, giving him 283 electoral votes, allowing him to beat Donald Trump and be the next president of the United States. And the reason we're doing this is because Julian Castro's expanded influence with Hispanics is going to come a really long way in Florida. And so that's going to wrap this video up, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys next time. Bye.